it's nice. You know, I was here for the last time out with the UFC, so I'm familiar with what.
What did you do to GSP?
Man, I wish I could say it was me. I didn't get a chance to train with him, unfortunately. You know, it was pretty much set up to come out here and do a bit of training with him just before the fight. He got injured, and you know, it's not going to happen now. Maybe next time.
So you didn't knock him out? Did you get to train with him at all?
No, I'm pretty pissed actually. I would have liked to train with him. He's a really cool guy. It's someone to look up to now. I'd like to get the experience of training with him. Yeah, definitely.
Who did you get to meet here that maybe helped you in a way or another?
No one really. I mean, Faraz is a good friend of Andre Winner, who's out here with me. You know, Andre's been out here a couple of times and trained over here, so he's familiar with the way they train and, you know, the style of everything of it. I just pretty much came to get a sweat on, do my interviews with you guys, go back, sit in a hot bath, sit in a sauna, not eat, be miserable, and go to the weigh-ins. Yeah.
So you didn't get to meet anyone here that you didn't know fighters?
No, not yet.
Now, Dan Hardy's been training here, right? I mean, it's like a Team Roughhouse, TriStar kind of coming together?
I wouldn't go that far. I think it's just coincidence that everything. I didn't know Dan was coming here, to be honest with you. Obviously, I took the fight at Ringside, and it's the best gym to come to if you're here, you know. You know, it's just worked out that way. It wasn't planned.
We're almost 24 hours from weigh-in. How much do you weigh right now?
210 pounds.
Oh my God, that's not good.
It's not good, but we're gonna get down to the weight, and we're gonna make sure on the scales at the right weight, and go get myself a Big Mac afterwards or something.
What do you expect out of this fight? Recently you had 2 decisions. Do you expect this fight to maybe go to decision?
It could possibly go to decision because, you know, Luigi Fioravanti is a tough guy. His last 2 fights, his last 2 losses have been by decision, but they've been against middleweights. He's a very, very durable guy. He's got a lot of heart. He's a former Marine, so he's got a never say die attitude. So I don't expect it to be easy at all. But I like those kind of fights. In fights where, more often than not, in fights where I can fight over 3 rounds, I'm able to show a lot more. Normally, you know, 20 of my fights I've just come out and knocked the guy out in the first round, and people are just like, yeah, he has a big left hook. But if you saw my last fight at Bami, you could see I can kick, I can punch, I can elbow, I could do jumping knees, you know, I could stuff a takedown or 2. Same with Tyron Woodley. I think I had a flashback to some old Hoist Gracie video and pulled off a rolling omoplata, and you know, I've got stuff in the memory bank that's just there waiting to be used. So hopefully this fight does go 3 rounds, but hopefully I knock him out in the last minute or so.
How do you plan on cutting 40 pounds in a day?
Man, a lot of shitting, a lot of sitting in a hot bath, and a lot of saunaing and not eating anything.
Is this the most you've had to cut in 24 hours, or?
Yeah. I might even have to chop something off. That weighs a lot, but we'll just leave it at that, and we'll move swiftly on.
We had the chance to talk with Nate Marquardt recently, and he said that he wanted you to do everything in your possibility to make a fight happen with him.
I tried really, really hard. Right now it's out of my control, you know. I don't know if you know, but I am still signed to Forza, Zuffa, and the whole, you know, empire over there, and they have to sign me off. They signed me off for this fight, they signed me off for Bama. Every fight I've had away from Strikeforce since I left the UFC, I've had to be signed off for. They wouldn't sign me off for the Bama fight, as of yet. So
how long you have this restriction with Zuffa?
I wouldn't say it's friction. The way I see it is if they're not signing me off, they may want to use me in a future card. You know, our dialogue with the guys at Zuffa and Forza is pretty good as far as Strikeforce is concerned. You know, we got really well with them. Like I said, they've signed me off for previous fights, so yeah, it's all good.
Very confident you could be back to the UFC one day. Is that what you're aiming for?
I would like to go back to the UFC, but right now there's a few interesting fights here at Ringside MMA. Once I knock Luigi out, and there's a few fights, you know, like Nate over at Bama, and I'd like to spend my time, maybe a few more months, beating up some dudes with big names outside the UFC, collecting a few more paychecks, getting a few more fans in these different parts of the world, and then getting back on the biggest show in the world.
Is there a possibility to see you back in Quebec and Montreal?
Man, I will come back here at the drop of a hat, really. You know, the people are cool out here. Like I said, I'm familiar with the place. The guys at Ringside MMA have been real cool, and yeah, I'll definitely come back to this show.
A rematch with Nick Diaz, that would be good.
That would be really good, and that's something that I would love to do. Hopefully over at the UFC, because with their marketing power and their money, I think they could put a real spin on it, get a lot of people interested. Considering the first fight was such a blast, you know.
You're gonna watch next week against BJ Penn?
Yeah, it should be a really interesting match because my wrestling coach, who's out here, Kenny Johnson, obviously he trains BJ Penn, and he was in camp with Nick Diaz when he was out there helping BJ Penn. So there's like a lot of friction there, and I'm a big BJ fan. You know, I've met him a couple of times out in LA. And I'm a big Nick Diaz fan as well. Even though I fought him, you know, before the fight, I said he's a great fighter. He's got a style that's really great for the sport, and I think it'll be a huge fight. I just hope a lot of people tune in and watch the fight.
You think so? It's
prediction.
Some people, have said it's not main event worthy since.
It's most definitely main event worthy. Obviously, they don't carry the name as GSP. It's not. They don't have that bigger name. BJ maybe, but. It's going to be a fantastic fight. Stylistically, it should be great. They both have great jiu-jitsu. I give the edge to BJ in wrestling. Obviously, Nick's got the stamina and the size, and they both have great boxing, so it's going to be a really interesting fight.
They're talking about maybe making this a 5-rounder. Do you think that...
If it's a 5-rounder, then I think BJ may be done by the start of the third. He has to, but if it's 3 rounds, then I think BJ, you know, just on his heart and the fact he likes to scrap, if it goes to 3 rounds, I think BJ will still be in there. 5 rounds, Nick Diaz all day.
You fought with the UFC, you fought with Strikeforce. You know, since Zuffa bought Strikeforce, some guys have jumped to the UFC and they didn't have much success. And people are kind of bashing against the Strikeforce guys. You've been on both sides of the fence. What can you say about that?
I think there's a lot of competition in both promotions. I mean, if you look, like Nick Diaz has gone straight from Strikeforce, and he was supposed to be fighting the champ of the UFC. He's a great fighter. You've got Dan Henderson, who's obviously bounced back and forth. You've got myself. I've been in #1 contender position with the UFC, and I fought the champion over at Strikeforce. So I think among some fighters, it's a good level. Obviously, Tyron Woodley is a great up-and-coming fighter. I don't think he'll do so good in the UFC yet, even though he beat me. But I think he's one to watch. There are some good fighters here. Another Canadian guy, Jordan Main, I think, who I've seen for the first time. He looks pretty solid. He looks like a pretty solid guy, and yeah, a lot of interesting fights.
Maybe the difference is in the depth of the talent pool?
Yeah, the depth, yeah. I would say that, like, going back to Strikeforce now, I don't really see that many fights for me in the welterweight division. A rematch with Tyron Woodley is probably the only one that I would consider taking. Even though, like I say, Jordan Main's a real tough guy, he's a beast. I don't think on the weight of his name yet it's worthwhile for me. I might just get my ass whooped and everyone's like, who's this Jordan Main character? And then I look like an asshole. So I'll skip that one for a little while, let his name get bigger, and then, you know, maybe we could fight, scrap it out, and see who wins.
What do you think is going to happen with Strikeforce? Do you think it's going to
I think they're going to be done within the next 6 months. Yeah, I think Strikeforce is going to be done within the next 6 months. So maybe I'm going to have a home here at Ringside MMA, or maybe we'll see me drafted back to the UFC.
Yeah, do you see it as a good thing for fighters? Another promotion?
Really, I think, like, I'm a big fan of the UFC, and I think what they're doing is great, but you can't really monopolize something. And you see with the internet, people like Microsoft and Google, you know, the law has to get involved because there has to be competition, or you can't have the whole market share. Great if you can, because you've got the money and you know you've got the power to do that, but it's not really fair on everybody else. And I think at some point, if the UFC keeps, or Zoom keeps gobbling up these promotions, some like high court, as we call it back in the UK, is going to have to step in and say, look, we have to fall back.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
Have you had any conversation with Dana White recently?
No.
I mean, nothing?
No, I think Dana White's he's a cool guy. You know, he's done great things for the sport. You know, we haven't seen eye to eye in the past, but you know, I'm sure he looks over me. I'm really not that important to Dana White. I've just got to concentrate on my career and hope that someone there is taking note, or just look for people that are willing to look after me and make it able for me to pay my bills and feed my family, you know?
And were you surprised to see Nick Diaz initial that press conference and kind of blow that opportunity?
Not really, to be honest with you. Nick Diaz is a cool guy. I really like Nick Diaz. We're the same mentality, we just go different ways, we go about different ways of doing things. We're real fighters. I try to, you know, still be a little bit articulate. Nick Diaz is pretty much a thug and just does what the fuck he likes, but I still try and be a little bit articulate with the way I do things. But you know, I'm a great admirer of Nick Diaz. He's a real fighter. His whole attitude is fighting. When he's in the cage, when he's out of the cage, he don't like doing stuff like this. He don't want to be doing no press shoots, getting sprayed with water and stuff like that. He just wants to fight, and that's the same thing that I want to do.
Cool. Good luck in the weight.
Thank you very much. Cheers.